Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question which I will flip in here for you guys. And pretty much he is trying to run like my novice program, which most of you know is a 5x5 full body 3-day-a-week program. However, because of his time constraints in his schedule, working 10 to 12 hour shifts, travel time from work, everything else, he really only has about 30 minutes a day to dedicate to the gym, and he's got to be in and out within 30 minutes. So he is splitting the program up into like a push-pull legs type thing to try to get the same weekly volume in from each of the workouts, like doing the squats on one day and the bench and the pressing on another. And so let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing and let's talk about that a little bit. Now, he's kind of asking the wrong question there because he's concerned, will this have the same sort of negative effects that I talked about in the video I did yesterday about push-pull what was it, upper lower push-pull legs 5-day a week? No, not exactly, but it could, because you're coming in, if you're training like 5 days a week doing this, you could have some problems in that regard. But that's usually people are doing that so they can do excessive amounts of workload. You're trying to split things up so you can be in and out of the gym in 30 minutes or less. Now, what I'm going to suggest here is something dramatically different. Obviously, you can't run my novice program as it is. You're going to have to run a big variation. It's not really my 5x5, because you're splitting it up different. What I'm going to recommend instead for someone who only has 30 minutes tops a day, but you are trying to get in the gym 3, 4, 5 days a week, and I think the 5 is still going to be excessive for most of you. Depending upon where you're at with your training, work capacity, recovery, I'm going to break down and suggest to you that instead you should still do full body every time you're in. Rather than split the lifts up, you need to split the sets up. And it comes down to the fact of several different matters, and I'll explain why here from a muscle protein synthesis perspective as well as a weekly tonnage perspective. What people need to understand when it comes to total work done in tonnage, yeah, weekly workload and tonnage does matter for hypertrophy. But when you think about it, most of you guys understand that each set you do in a workout has diminished returns, meaning doing 2 sets doesn't give you twice the gains of doing 1 set. 3 sets doesn't give you 3 times the gain of 1 set. You probably only gain 20% more progress from doing that second set, if that, maybe 10% more from that third set. See where I'm going with this? And you only grow for 1 to 2 days from that training, and those muscles stop growing. So what I would suggest, let's say you take the squat or the bench press and you choose to do, let's say you're going to do 3 sets of squats every week and 3 sets of bench press every week. Obviously my program has more than that, but we're going to look at these in base numbers. If you come in and you do 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 10, I don't care what it is. If you come in and you do multiple sets across, obviously you're not training the first set or two to exhaustion on a multi-set system, because your reps are going to go down dramatically. What you're going to find when you're doing a single set versus multiple sets, because you're not having to leave anything in the tank for the second or third set, you can do a little more weight for the same number of reps. A little more weight for the same number of reps is going to stimulate a little more growth, a few more extra muscle fibers, right? Meaning if you were doing your work sets with 200 pounds for X number of reps, you're probably going to find that you can do like 210 on just the 1 set. So you were coming in and say doing 200 pounds for 3 sets of 5, 3 sets of 10, whatever, we'll call it 3 sets of 10. You ended up doing a tonnage of that of 30 times 200, 6,000 pounds in the one workout, and then you don't touch it for a week because you're doing a push-pull legs type setup. If you had come in and did 3 different days with 210, you see the difference. You've done 5% more tonnage. You've done more work. And if you think about that in terms of every single set, because you have to remember, your training isn't about each individual workout. Bodybuilders would have you believe that each individual workout matters tremendously in the grand scheme of things. It really doesn't. Your muscle growth is an accumulation of the fatigue and the training and the workload and adaptation that you do over the course of the week, over the course of the month. I mean, we could really look at it once you get out of the early novice phase. You could really look at training in terms of like monthly workloads, monthly fatigue induced. But what you're going to find is that if you're spreading the sets out more through the week, And that was what they noticed in the Norwegian study when they took that Norwegian powerlifting team and they had them doing high reps, low reps, all that. When they had them training, say, the squat every day, they moved more tonnage through the week also, instead of lumping it into individual sessions with a bunch of different sets. When they spread the workload out through the week, they moved more tonnage. They also gained more muscle and they gained more strength. And these were not novice lifters. Again, this was a Norwegian powerlifting team. And I believe it was an IPF team that was in the middle of random drug testing. So they were being subjected to their random off-season testing. And I'm not saying you can't beat that. But that does mean that it would have been harder for them to be using any excessive amounts of drugs. So is it fair to say they were possibly drug-free? Yeah. Of course, that's why they chose them. They wanted at least some chance of their subjects being drug-free. But they did find that they moved more tonnage through the week by separating the stuff up. They gained more muscle mass and more strength. All right, now that's what you should be looking at in terms of, you've got limited time frame to be in the gym. You've only got 30 minutes. You don't have excessive time to waste to be inefficient. Your most efficient use of that time is going to be to do a variety of all your major exercises every time you're there, and to get effective sets in. Move as much tonnage as you can. So by spreading it out, just the example I gave with 3 days a week, the 3 sets versus 1, most people can lift at least 5% more weight, some 10% more weight. So your 6,000 pounds on that lift moved turns into something like 6,300, 6,600, right? You move more tonnage with the same number of sets. Another factor, after you train a muscle or an exercise, what does all the available research say? How soon does your muscle stop growing? Muscle protein synthesis uptime is what determines how big your growth window is. Muscles stop growing within 28 to 48 hours after you train them. So if you take any given exercise, that's why I said we don't need to, it doesn't matter whether we're talking about the squat, the bench, or the row, or whatever here. With that 200 pounds we talked about. Because that muscle stops growing within 48 hours. If you came in and you only had time, because again, the 3 sets of these exercises, you 30 minutes a week, or 30 minutes a day, and you spread that out, not only are you moving more tonnage with every set that you're doing, you're giving yourself more total growth window. Because if that muscle stops growing within 48 hours, you had a 48-hour growth window on that muscle from the 3 sets. You've expanded that out to 3 times that with the 3 different sets, the sets spread throughout the week. Now, people will argue, well, it's also less tonnage, so the growth window will be shorter. Yeah, but I promise you the weekly total muscle protein synthesis uptime will be higher, gives you more growth potential, and you're doing more work with those muscles. All right, and people will talk about metabolic fatigue from a single training session, and there is some truth to that, but there is also weekly metabolic fatigue to factor in. You are, if you do it that way, moving more tonnage. You are doing more work with those muscles in the same week. More work is not a flat line. It's not like more work equals X amount of extra growth. It is a diminished return. But you are doing more work. That is more growth potential. You have more muscle protein synthesis uptime. That is more growth potential. So when you've got very, very limited time frame to get in and out of the gym, the very last thing I would do would be splitting the work up. It would be to make sure you get one good quality work set for every major muscle group. Because that way you're making the most efficient use of your 30 minutes. You're making sure every muscle is continually growing. You're maximizing your total tonnage per week while having a very, very short window to get in and out of the gym. That's just being efficient. You're going to make more progress doing that. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, what about warm-ups? And I'm like, what about warm-ups? Unless you're squatting 500 pounds here, guys, you shouldn't need many warm-ups. And warm-ups, people screw up their warm-ups. They come in and do a bunch of high-rep warm-ups, ramp real fast. If you're warming up, you don't need 2 minutes between warm-up sets and your main work set. If you're going to work with 200 pounds, do 3 reps with the empty bar, do 3 reps with 100 pounds, and go to your 200-pound work set. Take 30 seconds between those. You're only doing 3 or 4 reps tops, 2, 3, 4 reps on your warm-ups. That's not fatiguing anything. If you're going to do 200 pounds for 5 reps or 10 reps, 2 short warm-ups. Jump into it. That should take you 3 minutes per exercise. Now you got 30 minutes, there's no reason you can't do 5 or 6 big exercises in there, do one work set and jump to the next one. Make efficient use of your time. Efficient use of your time isn't spending 10 minutes warming up on your exercises. Get in and be efficient. If you're trying to get in and out of the gym fast, this is just simple stuff you could look at. You got 30 minutes to work with. Your goal should be to get as much muscle protein synthesis uptime in every muscle you're trying to train. Maximize your weekly tonnage and workload done for the time you're in there, and get the hell out. This is when you learn how the body really adapts. When you're put in a situation with your job, and I've been in this exact situation. I used to work 5 12-hour shifts, and I used to train on my way home. And then I didn't train on the weekend. My weekends were for rest, recovery, and fun. You learn real quick how much work you can actually do when you know that you want to get home, you know that you finished work and you want to get home and get done in the gym. You learn to be efficient. And that's what you got to do here. And a push-pull legs is not the efficient way to do this. Get in and do every one of your exercises for one work set and get out. Maximize your tonnage, maximize your muscle growth, and it'll go a lot better for you. Use that 30 minutes as efficiently and effectively as possible. It's all about efficient time management when you're working 12-hour shifts. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.